Hello everyone and welcome to True to Form, a brand new YouTube show exclusive to Racing TV. In this week's edition, we'll look at the anti-post market for the King George at Kempton on Boxing Day, hopefully identifying a horse at double figure odds that should give us a great run for our money for connections that are enjoying a brilliant start to the season. We'll look back at the two-day pre-Christmas feature at Cheltenham, hopefully identifying some of their star performers and horses that excelled on the track using the Racing IQ data. We'll take a look at the last 7 days in Ireland and some of those Irish aces which have sparkled for Willie Mullins et al. There'll be a couple of horses to add to your Racing TV tracker, including one from the dark side at Hexham. And we'll also try and point you in the way of one or two races perhaps tread carefully with in our Snog, Marry, Avoid feature. We'll wind up this week's edition with looking at two of the races at Ascot on Saturday, competitive pre-Christmas fair, and hopefully we can find the winners of those for you to go into Boxing Day with a few quid in your pocket. So let's start off then with our anti-post preview at Kempton. So the market for the King George could still change quite dramatically depending on which horses are supplemented and added to the field, and that in some respects makes anti-post betting quite perilous, but I think the 10 or 11 to 1 on offer about L'Homme Pressé is a very fair evaluation of the horse's chance. He's a horse that goes incredibly well fresh. He's won after 700 days off and 3 times after more than 200 days absences. So we haven't got to worry about his fitness. He was a little bit unfortunate not to be a creditable second to Braveman's Game in the race a couple of years ago when Charlie Deutsch and him parted company at the final fence. And I thought he ran a really good race in the Gold Cup, didn't he, in March? He's 15 lengths behind one of the best Gold Cup horses we've seen in recent seasons in Galopin des Champs. He led them down to 2 out in a strong renewal of the race. It was a fine effort from L'Homme Pressé, who didn't come off the back of a perfect season last year getting to Cheltenham. Still a really good effort from him. Hopefully those little jumping foibles have been ironed out. He's a more mature horse. He hasn't got a lot of miles on the clock either, which is what I like about him. He goes very well right-handed. He's very versatile ground-wise. He, in many ways, is the perfect vehicle for an anti-post bet, and he hails from a yard that are going great guns at the moment. Gemaron, just the latest example of a big race win for Venetia Williams in recent weeks. Obviously, Royal Pagaille in the Grade 1 at Haydock as well, beating Grey Dawning, who is likely to be favourite for this race at around 7 to 2, 4 to 1. His price at the top of the market probably owes more to the fact that he's probably the sole Gold Cup horse in the country at the moment, and that's a little bit disconcerting, especially given the Irish battalions might come across the water for this race, certainly if they're added to it. I think Grey Dawning has a major chance, but you know, as we have seen, there are 1 or 2 Dan Skelton horses that can get beaten these big races, Venetia Williams being the major culprit for turning them over. And I think that L'Homme Pressé just strikes me as a really nice bet here at 10 or 11 to 1 each way in a race which could cut up a little bit. And if the ground does dry out a bit, the likes of Spillane might not even make the journey over. So he'll do for me, L'Homme Pressé, the King George, Boxing Day. So that's Kempton dealt with on Boxing Day. Let's go back to Cheltenham and their 2-day Christmas fixture then, with a couple of horses that really caught the eye, most predominantly in the novice chases. The Friday novice chase over 2.5 miles saw a really impressive win by Django Bay, a Grade 1 winning hurdler for Nicky Henderson, who's making his debut over fences at Prestbury Park. Now, the Racing IQ data was very illuminating here. He gained 10.5 lengths on his field during this race, and a jumping index of 8.8 for a debut was quite extraordinary. As I say, a Grade 1 winning hurdler, and I think the figures that he's managed to achieve on Friday suggest that he could well become a Grade 1 winning chaser. Whether it's over 2.5 or not is open to question going forwards. This looked a strong race despite the small field. Springwell Bay brought some good form into the race, and Caldwell Potter had absolutely bolted up not long before at Carlisle, just 12 days before, and again put in a really good round of exuberant jumping until he belted the last and just faded away. That was a really strong novices chase. The overall time was excellent. The circuit time was extremely quick as well. And if you look at the Racing IQ data, the speed lost at his fences for Django Bay was remarkably small, and that is what contributed to his very impressive win. He bounded clear after the last and was really taken with his effort. It was a really smart performance, and he was a second novice chaser which caught the eye from the stable that week, because Ginkgo Blue had done something similar over 2.5 at Uttoxeter. That was a really sparkling performance from him as well. He was 10 seconds quicker did anything else on that card on the final circuit. His overall time was really good. He gained 7.62 lengths over the course of that race, and his jumping index was 8 as well. So two very nice 2.5 mile novice chasers for 7 barrows to go to war with in the weeks to come. Django Bay, who was clearly the pick and looks as though he's well up to winning at the top level over fences. Certainly if he jumps like this again, he will be. And Ginkgo Blue at Utoxeter. Of the vanquished at Cheltenham, I really liked Springwell Bay. I thought it was a nice performance from him. I think he looks more comfortable back over 2.5. I think there's other races to be won by him going further down the line. He might be something that, you know, the plate might be interesting for him at the Cheltenham Festival. A race of that nature, maybe a handicap over 2.5 might be ideal. And I don't think I'd give up on Caldwell Potter yet. Unfortunately, we're never going to get a big price about this lad because he cost 740,000 guineas. He's a very hyped horse, but I thought he jumped beautifully for the great majority of that novice chase at Cheltenham. I just think he wants softer ground just to slow them down a little bit, but I wouldn't be giving up on him just yet. This will be valuable experience accrued by Caldwell Potter. I think this race will work out quite nicely going forward. Another race which I hope will work out nicely going forward is Saturday's novices chase over 3 miles, 1.5 furlongs, won by Haiti Calor. Rebecca Curtis's clean jumping and enthusiastic goer put up a really sparkling performance both on the clock and also using the racing IQ data. There were 1 or 2 people who were a little bit lukewarm about his claims going into Saturday because he'd only beaten 1 rival at Aintree, but he had jumped very well on that occasion. And he again jumped brilliantly in the hands of Sean Bowen for Rebecca Curtis on Saturday. He gained 9.5 lengths over the circuit, or over the 2 circuits, and his jumping index was 8.7, which was a real improvement on that Aintree 7.9 number that he managed to achieve first time. He's a type of horse that could easily go into a Brown Advisory novices chase, but he would also be very interesting in something like the Ultima, where his sort of clean jumping, precise fencing would suggest that he would be very comfortable amongst handicappers who've got a lot more experience. I thought he jumped like a handicapper on Saturday. I was really taken with that display. Of those that were in behind, well, I thought Transmission ran a very good audition for something like the Kim Muir. I think Peaky Boy might be another one that might be aimed at the Ultima as well. He gained 10.37 lengths during the race on his rivals, and his jump index was 8.8 as well. Now, in some circumstances, he was a little bit disappointed that he couldn't get the job done on Saturday, but I just wonder whether the pacers managed to hold up at Cheltenham on Saturday. Making all on that track is sometimes the place to be, and I wonder whether Peaky Boy, perhaps just feeling the effects of that first run as well not too long ago, Canby got better at home and might be a horse to keep on side going forward. I would be very positive about the form, of both of those novice chases. Right, some lovely affairs at Cheltenham just to keep on the right side of then, and a couple of horses for the Racing TV tracker as well, which caught my eye in the last 7 days. The first of those ran at Punchestown, and it's a horse called McClory, who ran in the JP McManus colours with Mark Walsh on board, and that's McClory. He looked a real Martin Pipe type to me. He was travelled very nicely through that race. It was a strongly run race won by James's Gate, who's finally starting to realise some of that potential he showed from a year or 2 ago before injury struck. I was just taken with the way that McClory went through the race. He was quite easy to back, obviously trained by Emmett Mullins as well. He very much going to be the agenda that he's going to aim to have a handicap at the festival, perhaps in his sights as we work towards that March date. I thought the Martin Pipe might be ideal for him. I thought he jumped and travelled beautifully, and he's definitely a horse for me that I would want to keep on side going forward. It'd be interesting to see what he does once he's handicapped. I think he's had 3 starts now over hurdles. Disappointed in the Hood, that was at Fairyhouse, but ran really well at Tipperary in a big field, so at least we know he can cope with a big field. And I like the way that he jumped and attacked his hurdles here and wasn't knocked about when his chance didn't seem to present itself late on. So I think there's more to come from McClory, and something like the Martin Pipe might be an interesting one for him further down the line. 24 hours later then at Hexham, not a race that we covered on Racing TV, but a race that threw up a good winner in Rattling Road, was the 2.5 mile handicap chase. Now Rattling Road, a son of Arctic Cosmos, who has certainly done the Scudamore and Russell axis proud in recent times, not least with Appleway, a Grade 1 winner, 6-time winner. And in Rattling Road, they look to have found a horse that is very nicely handicapped at the moment. I was very, very taken with the way that he moved through the race. His overall speed figure was very good for the race. He was quicker on the circuit than every other chase on the card. He gained 7.68 lengths and his jumping index was a healthy 7.5. So off an official rating even of 105, I think he's a horse that I'd really want to keep on side going forward, especially given the way that Lucinda Russell and Peter Scudamore managed to improve his type. So Rattling Road and McClory would be my two for the tracker. Right, let's get on to those Irish aces and the ones that caught the eye. So some cracking action in Ireland then. We'll get stuck into 2 or 3 horses that have really caught the eye with their performances, and those performances can be backed up by the data. Let's start off at Cork on Friday with Quelle Histoire, who was sent off 4 to 5 favourite for that hurdle. A son of Mass Marvel, he won over a mile and a half in France in a bumper, and then snapped up for 200k by JP McManus, making his debut over hurdles, just in this maiden hurdle. Albeit the second favourite didn't run a particularly positive race, but that shouldn't be used to denigrate the performance of Quelle Histoire, who, along with a 25 to 1 chance, stretched readily clear, 12 lengths clear of the third, and really caught the eye with his performance. I love the way that he jumped and travelled. He was a bit sticky over the first 2 or 3, but he learnt from that, learnt on the job, and I think it was a really taking performance from him. I think he needs some education, he certainly needs a bit more experience, but I think he'll get that obviously in the weeks to come. I think the raw materials are there to produce a really nice horse, and Quelle Histoire was a horse that I really want to keep on side going forward. It's a pretty good weekend, wasn't it, as well, for those famous silks, as Majborough really announced his Arkle pretensions with a really stunning performance, very slick jumping performance, and gained some great plaudits on the figures as well. He gained 15.21 lengths on the Racing IQ data in that novices chase, and his jumping index was 9.4, which was quite an extraordinary figure really for a first time out chaser. The Triumph Hurdle winner looks as though he's going to take high rank amongst the novices this year, and I thought he put a few shivers perhaps through the low sud connections with this performance. It was a really sparkling effort. It'd be interesting to see where he goes next. Maybe they might find a race for him over Christmas. I could certainly see him ending up at the Dublin Racing Festival en route to the Arkle, but it was a really sparkling performance from Majborough, and one that you really must keep on side this horse. He's a really exceptional talent and looks as though he's going to pay to follow for the season to come. Finally, the triumvirate of JP horses that caught the eye was Beyond Your Dreams, a filly who won at Fairyhouse. This was her third hurdle and a first victory, and she got a fair bit of form from the flat, winning over a mile and a half. She was a little bit sticky. I wouldn't say she's the most fluent of jumpers just yet, but the stable have got her pretty well qualified already for the Boodles, and I know it's very early to be talking about those sort of races, but I do like it when stables crack on and get the job done pre-Christmas, and then they can pick and choose where they go afterwards, perhaps for a little pipe opener or just to see what the handicapper does. It gives them plenty of room to manoeuvre. So Beyond Your Dreams, very, very interesting horse going forward, certainly for something like the Boodles. So those are the Irish horses that have certainly caught the eye then. What about the races to treat with a bit of caution? Well, we've been pretty positive really about the Willie Mullins novices. He's unveiled a good few recently that have caught the eye, both over hurdles and over fences. One that I was just a little bit lacklustre about, and perhaps not quite as enthusiastic about as others, might be Dancing City, who won at Punchestown on December the 10th, and in all honesty, did nothing wrong. A Grade 1 winning hurdler. He gained 10.72 lengths at his fences. His jumping index was 7.3. I was just really disappointed in the overall speed figure, which was quite a modest figure. And he was almost sort of 7 seconds slower on the circuit than other chases on the card as well. I just thought he was more workmanlike than brilliant and exceptional, and maybe we were just treated to 1 or 2 very good sparkling performances over fences in the last 7 days, and he just didn't float the boat quite as well as 1 or 2 of the others. But there's no doubt that he's a good, hardy, durable, workmanlike horse, but he's going to be well touted up for something like the Brown Advisory. I just wonder whether he's got the gears required for a race of that nature, certainly, in context with one or two other horses that look as though they're going to be, exceptional novices this year, the Haiti Couleurs of this race, and maybe even Django Bay if he goes up in trip. I think there's a bit of quality and depth over this side of the Irish Sea. I just wonder whether Dancing City really needs to step up and progress. He's going to have a 1 next to his name. He's going to go up in grade now. He just might be one just to tread carefully with rather than going in gung-ho. At an altogether lower level, a horse called Despereaux, who I saw win at Warwick and land a bit of a tilt in the tilt at the market in the cheek pieces a while back, followed up in good style really at Taunton on Thursday. The speed figure overall was pretty modest though, and I just wonder whether those cheek pieces and the fact that he's stepped up to 3 miles, those sort of benefits may well start to wear off a little bit. The circuit time was 5 seconds slower than anything else that was run on the card. The runner-up jumped poorly. I just wonder whether that just might be form, just to treat with a little bit of caution. So that's Despereaux. I'm not saying I would go gung-ho backing him to complete the hat-trick, and he might be one that I would take on at a very thin price if they are keen to get him out again quickly. Well, that's last week taken care of. What about this Saturday at Ascot? We've got 2 really decent handicaps, one over fences, one over hurdles. The 3 o'clock is the Howden Silver Cup on Saturday, in which Victorino is towards the head of the market, last year's winner. He had Phlegmatic back in third 12 months ago, and that encouraging run in the Coral Trophy where he stayed on very strongly late on will have seduced a lot of people into thinking he's a good thing on Saturday, and he may well be. He's 2 from 3 round Ascot. And I say it's 3-1 for a stable that are carrying all before them at the moment, so it'd be no great surprise to see him go and add to last year's win. His jumping can be a little bit sticky though, and that was again his little Achilles heel at Newbury. And I just wonder whether at 3-1, 5-2, is he going to be too much value to take this? I think I'd have a small saver on him, but I don't think I'd make him my main bet going into Saturday. And I'm not convinced that the Changing Man is going to find conditions ideal either. He's 0 from 9 right-handed. I just worry about him perhaps going this way round, and he's sort of 7-1 second favourite. So he might just be one that I would look to just oppose as well. So it's the front end of the market that I'm not absolutely mad on. Maybe a saver in the Howden Silver Cup on Victorino. But I think the main bet, if he runs, would be 3 under through 5, who in the anti-post markets was as big as 14-1. I haven't privy to the Saturday declarations just yet, but if he does run in this, I think he's a major player. He's got a good record fresh. He's 5 from 7 right-handed. He's 5 from 7 during December, January and February as well. And his 4 first-time out figures are first, second, third, second. He won here in February as well for Paul Nicholls. And I just like the fact that, Paul's had him in a couple of races recently, not run him. And I think he's keen to come to Ascot, hopefully, and give a good account of himself in this race. So I think he could be a little bit of value against the front end of the market, and that's 3 under through 5. The second handicap on the card is the, it used to be called the Ladbroke, didn't it? It was the competitive 2-mile handicap in which Be Aware is likely to be favourite here. Obviously, he was second in the Greatwood. That was just his 5th hurdle start. I thought he lacked a little bit of experience. That was the concern as well. I was quite sweet on him that day, but I think just a lack of education and perhaps a lack of battle hardiness in those tough handicaps just caught him out a touch. And I thought there's plenty more to work on there. Burdick Road went again, I think, on the run-in when Be Aware joined him. I think Harry Skelton came in for 1 or 2 little pieces of criticism, which I think was a little bit harsh. I think he's a horse that's very much going places, and he would certainly be on my shortlist, Be Aware. I really couldn't see why he shouldn't run a big race again. Just to recap those then, I am respectful of Victorino, but just at the prices, just the way that he jumps sometimes, I'm going to take him on with 3 under through 5. I wouldn't put anybody off having a saver on Victorino. Be Aware would probably be my main bet at Ascot on Saturday. Very unoriginal, unfortunately, a 9-2. Thanks very much for your company this week, and if you've got any questions at all, please do fire them in. Keep them clean, and please don't make them about Wolverhampton Wanderers. Thanks very much for your company. We'll see you soon.
Watch live racing now on Racing TV, eyecatchers.com.